but I actually think that I would take Mario Hezonja.
Toughness, can handle the basketball, shoot the three, and finish at the hoop, and compete at his position.
In my opinion, the best shooter in this draft.
The Orlando Magic select Mario Hezonja.
We'll have to see, but right now, he's a bust.
The 2015 NBA Draft is one that seems to get weirder by the day. From what looked like one of the better top fives in recent years, much of the buzz has fizzled out just as quickly as it started. But one name seemed to get forgotten way more than the rest. There was a time when Mario Hezonja looked like an elite two-way threat with potential to be a top wing for the years to come. In 2023, I'm sure a lot of fans don't even know this guy, so let's relive the emergence of Super Mario. As a kid born into the tail end of the Croatian War of Independence, it was an interesting come-up. With a dad whose water polo career was destroyed by the war, he lived through Mario in a way, investing his time and energy in helping him get the most out of his athletic career. The genetic talent was there. This guy could dominate in just about every sport he wanted to, starting at just 4 years old. With the footwork and physical endurance from his soccer stint, the physicality and toughness from his handball stint, and the skills as well as the full utilization of his God-given talent, Mario was a threat from the second he decided to focus strictly on his basketball career at 10 years old. He devoted everything he had to climbing the ladder, and he quickly began to do so. 4-hour workouts every day on top of his schoolwork, regular practices and game schedule, he essentially sacrificed his childhood to achieve his dream, and he caught up to just about everyone in only a few years, becoming the youngest player to reach the top division of Croatian club ball at 13 years old. His life moved fast, and he relocated to his nation's capital to continue his career at just 14 years old. But in his words, you need to move faster than everyone else, so they'll just weigh you down. At this point, he was garnering buzz around the country. People caught word of this hyper-athletic 14-year-old who just won the Nike 18U International Tournament. He lit up club ball all throughout his younger years, and played very well after getting signed to Barcelona's second-tier team with nearly 15 a game. As one of the best young players in the world at this point, he was called up to Barcelona's EuroLeague team at just 18 years old. Minutes are hard to come by whether you're a star or a nobody at this age, so his stats are lower than you'd think for someone who's working his way into international discussions. Scouting EuroLeague talent is all eye test, and let's just say this guy checked out. His jump shot was picture perfect. He set his feet, great balance, dip and a high release point at 6'8", with a very solid wingspan. His 40 and 38% shooting from behind the arc was very impressive. As the NBA buzz started to grow in his second year, this was a major draw. He was a killer catch and shoot guy with some life shooting very deep, especially with the Euro 3-pointer a bit deeper than the NCAA, and off the bounce at times as well. The other in-your-face perk to Hezonja's game was the ridiculous athleticism this guy displayed. His ability to cut fast and hard was impressive, and mixed with his shooting made him a great off-ball threat, and with pretty good defense as well. It really sounded like a higher floor, higher ceiling type of scenario. He can pull up over the top you, dunk on your head, already at 19 years old, and he definitely enjoyed every bit of it. He gained a reputation as one of the most confident, or what I would call cocky prospects ever. From saying he could beat Kobe one-on-one to saying Lionel Messi should come watch him play instead of the other way around. I mean, that kind of tells you the story. He would throw down windmills up 20 and dunk every chance he got, but when things weren't going his way, he kind of just tended to disappear. That wasn't his only flaw either. For starters, his ball handling was okay at best. He was athletic and could explode off a pump fake and drive, or if he had an open lane to the basket, but he wasn't going to break anyone down out of an isolation. I'd relate it to like an Andrew Wiggins type of thing. His only real way of getting to the basket is to explode there. Secondly, he was young and his game was immature in a lot of ways. He was turnover prone a lot of the time, and his decision making could be lacking, but I wouldn't exactly call him a low IQ player. At times, he'd make some actually pretty brilliant passes, and his ceiling looked high in that regard, but his skill as a playmaker was held back by his lack of creation skills altogether. As the season went on, the hype snowballed a bit. He worked his way into the mid-lottery range, and after declaring for the 2015 draft, they basically sat him out. Yeah, they're kind of petty over there sometimes, but more importantly, he was kind of an under-the-radar threat coming into the league. The 2015 draft basically featured a lock of a top three. Cat, Jalil, and D'Lo were going to go in whatever order, but really outside of that, there was no guarantees. There was question marks all over, kind of for everyone. It felt like this was a weird draft, but all in all, he went number 5 to the Magic. That's pretty high for someone who scored just 5 points a game, but that just shows you how impressive this kid was talent-wise. The Magic were a bad team, but they had some young talent on the roster at this time. Nikola Vucevic, Victor Oladipo, Aaron Gordon, Evan Fournier, and Tobias Harris are all good pieces, who all amounted to something in the league, and this meant that there was competition on the wing in particular. He was going to have to earn his minutes, that was apparent, and for a team that had the 5th overall pick, they really did not seem to put a whole lot of weight into his development. He was on a short leash and wasn't really allowed to grow really at all. He played just 18 minutes a game on a pretty sucky team. I don't really know what they're trying to do with this guy. Orlando was in an odd position. They're developing all the guys mentioned at the same time, so when one played bad, they basically just subbed him out for someone else as if they were a contending team. Hezonja caught this treatment the worst. 6 points a game is pretty low, and the only real positive in this year was his jumper translated pretty well to the NBA. The main bright side I see this season, however, is in the 9 games he started. Around the board, he's just a more efficient and better player with volume, without the worry of being subbed out every little mistake he makes. It's clear that with time, he can be a rookie with some life. There's kinks in his game, but you didn't draft for fit, you gotta deal with that. But the Magic didn't really want to deal with it. His minutes dropped in his sophomore season, and he had a horrendous time. 35% from the field, 30 from 3. They gave up on him, and crushed his sky-high ego in the process. He clearly wasn't playing with confidence at this point. After losing Tobias Harris and Victor Oladipo, I really don't understand why you would sit him, to be honest. The Magic really never seemed interested in Hezonja. I get his play wasn't anything spectacular, but man, they really did not do him any favors. And his poor play became poor, even his strengths became weaknesses. His confidence just fell out of his game entirely. After declining to pick up the 4th year on his contract, they basically left Hezonja playing for a job in the NBA in just his 3rd season. With an increase in minutes came an increase in production to pretty mediocre totals, but at times he would get hot and keep at least a little buzz around his name. He seemed to go off and go for 25, and then he'd bounce back with scoring like 3. When things were bad, it seemed like he'd just pack it up. There was some hope around the league during this year for him on NBA YouTube really, but in context, I don't really see it being justified. Mario was still pretty turnover prone and lacked any improvement with creating for himself or others. His ball handling was pretty below average for an NBA score-first wing. He had some crazy highlights, but his athleticism alone didn't really do him a whole lot. He couldn't utilize it well at all, and his skinny frame didn't do him any favors in that regard. Most of his pre-NBA problems stuck. This was his first year shooting more than 1 free throw a game, and his cocky swagger proved to be a lot more fragile than you would expect for the guy who said he could give Kobe buckets. I get the Magic didn't help him, giving a very inconsistent role on the team, but his play was equally inconsistent and hard to play with, really. The Magic are known to underutilize talent. I just talked about this with JJ Redick. He struggled in his limited time before blooming elsewhere, but the same cannot be said about Hezonja. He signed a 1-year deal with the Knicks, which saw one of the wildest highlights in a while, but it was the same story, different jersey. Even out of Orlando, he was inconsistent as they come. 27% behind the arc, barely scratching 40% from the field. Honestly, he wasn't a very effective player 95% of the time. He had a life as a shooter sometimes, he was a good defender sometimes, but an average 3-and-D guy is just way more valuable, despite being far, far less talented than Hezonja. You can be the guy on a team that allows for some freedom, or you can fit a role. He was just kind of in that no man's land. His career ended poorly as he had a bad season with Portland to end his career. He left back to Europe, took a couple shots at the NBA on his way out, and won't be coming back anytime soon. The stagnation of his development was really one strange case. Yes, I'm sure the subpar management had something to do with it, but I really couldn't point to a single technical improvement he made in the NBA. As someone who is praised for their work ethic, you really don't see situations like this too often, but I guess he's just one of those guys who would rather be the top guy on JV than a bench guy on varsity. That's gonna do it. I'll catch you boys in the next one. Peace out.